role of organized crime in the history of Las Vegas is well known, in part because of the decades of news coverage by 8 News Now.
This Monday will mark our 60th anniversary, remembering the day that Nevada's first TV station went on the air. Almost from the beginning, our reporters and photographers risked everything to rip the cover off the mafia in our town. George Knapp of the I-Team has chased a mobster or two over the years, and he's here with part 1 of a look back.
Well, a cliche, of course, is that Las Vegas was a better place when the mob ran things here. It's wrong, and for more than one reason. The mob never ran the town, but there was a time when they operated most of the resorts here, and local officials kept their distance. In time, all of that changed, and our news crews were there to document every part of the rise and fall of the Las Vegas mob.
Watch yourself. You get run over there.
If this scene from the movie Casino seemed vaguely familiar, maybe it's because you first saw it as news footage on Channel 8.
Watch yourself. You don't get hit by a car.
Actor Robert De Niro fine-tuned his performance by viewing the real thing from the KLAS archives.
You were never my guest.
Lefty Rosenthal coming unglued before the Gaming Commission.
The chairman called me a liar. Asked the chairman if he had Jay Brown call me on behalf of him. We're also self-righteous.
From its beginning, 8 News Now chronicled the rise and fall of the mob in Las Vegas. Ben Bugsy Siegel was murdered 6 years before KLAS went on the air. But Siegel's mob colleagues were still firmly in control of casinos on the Strip and downtown through the 50s and 60s. Las Vegas was an open city back then, but our unofficial godfather, Meyer Lansky, insisted that any violence, such as Siegel's murder, happened somewhere else, which gave rise to a still popular perception.
The only thing I remember about mobsters is because they were in control, you never had any crime at the hotel. Anyone caught burglarizing a room either had all their fingers broken or you never heard from them again.
Attorney Gardner Jolly was just a youngster when his father became the majority owner of Nevada's first TV station. Locals knew the shady backgrounds of those who ran the casinos, but the mobsters mostly kept their noses clean here because the money was so good.
So we had control of them, and everybody that went to work in the gambling business needed a sheriff's card so we could kind of tell everybody where they were at, you know. They policed their own people, and we never had any trouble.
When Channel 8's Hank Thornley set up the first full-fledged TV news operation in town in 1962, covering the mob was part of the job.
If Mo Dalitz was going to open a hotel, which he did, that we would make mention of the fact that he had a background of the mob and so forth, and now we got a museum. That's great. So we didn't soft pedal any of it. We didn't go out aggressively for it. I know that Bobby Kennedy was doing enough of that.
Attorney General Bobby Kennedy's obsession with Teamsters President Jimmy Hoffa sparked an intensified federal presence in Las Vegas in the 60s. Hotels were bugged, owners were followed. Las Vegas was viewed suspiciously as a safe harbor for mobsters. After all, tens of millions of mafia-tainted Teamster dollars had financed most of the hotel casinos on the Strip. But the money came with strings attached. The mob skimmed untold riches. In the 70s, the golden era ended as a new breed of mobster came to town.
It was the case of the enforcers coming along to make sure that the titular heads were protected. But at the same time, those people were separately their own entrepreneurs, as in the case of Tony Spilatro, the hole-in-the-wall gang, the robberies and the burglaries, the loan sharking and so on that came with it.
Gaming regulator JASilver was there when the tide turned, when the law cracked down on mobsters who were no longer so discreet. Father and son hitmen Tom and Granby Hanley, for instance, firebombed restaurants and performed contract killings, including the murder of Culinary Union boss Al Bramlett. KLAS reported all of it.
Before he was murdered near the small town of Mountain Springs.
Local unions were riddled with mob corruption and influence. Mob-related murders and robberies rose. 8 News Now was there for every court appearance, every black book hearing, every homicide scene.
To me, what happened in there is a sham.
A silver-tongued attorney named Oscar Goodman became a fixture on our nightly newscasts.
None of my clients ever asked me whether they could kill anybody. None of them say, should we burglarize Bertha's? I did not have to, some of my detractors would have me as a consigliere, but the truth of the matter is they did not consult with me. As a matter of fact, they protected me. They would never discuss their business.
Before the mob's demise in Las Vegas was chronicled in the movie Casino, it was meticulously reported in a seminal documentary on Channel 8 called Mob on the Run. You can look at that and more on our digital timeline. Just go to 8newsnow.com, click on the banner at the top of the home page. Then coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, the beginning of the end for the Las Vegas mob and the story of the journalists who helped make that happen.
Well worth your time to go to the computer and see that.
A lot of stuff there.
Why do you think people do say that about things were better when the mob ran things?
Well, it was a smaller town.
They romanticized it.
Yeah, everybody knew each other. There was less crime. Before the corporations came in, the mobsters were incredibly generous. A lot of comps.
Yeah.
Shows were cheap. Meals were cheap. Rooms were cheap. Corporations came in. Everything had to pay for itself. It had to happen, of course.
Yeah.
And the corporations, as far as we know, don't kill people. But things had to change.
Interesting.
Look forward to part 2. Thanks,
See you at
George.
6.